Good evening and welcome to this month, first one this month, Rich, as well. Welcome to this month's Core and Björksav tasting. My name is Micky, and joining me this evening, as always, is my good friend and counterpart, Rich. Good evening, Rich.
Good evening, Micky. Good evening, everyone joining us from home. Happy to be here.
Awesome. So excuse us, we've not done this together in a couple of weeks. We've been off travelling and been on holidays, and Richard jetted off to Sweden. So a couple of bits might be a little bit rusty as we swing back into it, but I'm sure you'll forgive us. So Rich, let's not mess about. Let's tell everybody how I'll tell everybody how the tasting will work, and then you let us know some announcements. So tonight, guys, this is how the tasting is going to work. We'll start off with Rich with some brief announcements in a moment. We'll cover a brief history of Mackmyra. We'll keep that part short so we can get to the drams quicker. Yeah, and then we'll expand just a little bit on some of those points as we go through. The big thing tonight, guys, is you ask us some questions, okay? The more questions you ask us, the more information we'll give you, etc. We'll cover some key points that we know we definitely should tell you, but the good thing is you can ask us questions and we shall answer them for you. So, running order, Rich. What's the running order going to be?
So we will start off with the Brooks Whisky, which will be the blue labelled sample that people have. Brooks Whisky, then Mack, then Björksav, then Svenskak, and then Svenskbruk. Awesome.
So that's where it's going to work, guys. Okay, feel free to pour the first one now. Get pouring, get nosing, and there's no hanging about then. Listen to me and Rich go on a little bit. And you're thinking, when are we going to get the first dram? Get stuck into it now, guys, okay? So, but as we go through the drams, we will discuss each one a little bit more in detail. So we all suggest having a wee jug of water or a glass of water on hand, as well as like a straw or just some way of introducing a small bit of water to your whiskey if required. It's not always required, but we always do recommend it. And obviously a glass of water for drinking for yourself as well, for either between drams or if a little bit catches your throat or something, which can sometimes happen, just to help you along the way there. So, Rich, we've got some announcements, haven't we? What are the first couple, sir?
I think so. Things that we've got coming up. We've got another tasting on the 29th of July. So if anyone is watching this and didn't get any drams for it and just tuned in somehow anyway and you wanted to join, you can. There's still time to join the one on the 29th. Anyone that wants to repeat it or introduce it to friends, family, colleagues, loved ones, whoever they might be. Another one coming up. If you have a look at mackmyra.co.uk, you'll be able to find instructions on how to join and take part. And then a bit of Micky, we've been talking the last few days, a bit of a call to action, if you will, with whiskey clubs and things. If anyone that's joining this evening is a part of a whiskey club or just a group of mates who like to get together and share the occasional dram and learn a little bit about things as they go, or just enjoy the drinks and learn if it comes. Please get in touch, reach out to us directly, either put something in the comments now or you can email us and we'll check out mackmyra.co.uk and get in touch with our email there. And let us know if you're interested in having a tasting, even if it's just a couple of special bottles that we might not have here this evening, or you want to repeat some of the ones that we've got now, anything like that, let us know. And Mick, I think you're probably the person with the two most interesting updates to talk about people. So if you wouldn't mind sharing.
The excitement, Rich, exactly. No, so at the end of next week, actually, we shall be in Belfast for Belfast Whisky Week. For that, we have a show on Friday the 23rd at 2 p.m. That's just a quick hour show, and we're going to cover 3 drams, basically just a quick introduction to Mackmyra. And then that's going to be live from the Europa Hotel and also streamed online as well. So if you get across to belfastwhiskeyweek.com, .com. You can, I can't remember if it's .co.uk or .com. Belfastwhiskeyweek.com. You can get yourself a tasting pack there. You can either be at the venue with the tasting pack or dram along from home. And then on the Saturday from the Duke of York at 12 p.m. There's a more in-depth deep dive into Mackmyra, where actually we'll be releasing some news. So you'll get to find out we've bottled a special bottle for Belfast Whisky Week, which would only be available through a handful of selected retailers in Northern Ireland, and more details on that will be released over Belfast Whisky Week. But the first showing of it will be on Saturday at 12 p.m. for the Duke of York Bar. So that's it. Oh, and we've got Phil on this evening. So evening, Phil, for the New Union in Kendal. We're going to be doing a live, in-person and broadcasted show. So like this, but also with a live audience from the New Union Kendal on Thursday, the 19th of August at 7:30. Check out the New Union Facebook page. They do have an event up that Phil, I'm sure, will go down and share it again. So it's at the top of his page, so people that are going to check it out can go. So you can get tickets to be there in person. I think Phil's doing them for a grand old price of £20. Get to be there if you're in and around Kendal. You get to be there to experience the tasting live, or you can have your pack at home and tune in as you're doing now. But yeah, so that should be quite interesting. So Rich, I think it's just going to be like a follow-on from when you did the launch of Brooks Whisky Deluxe with the guys down in Lichfield. So yeah.
I think you're going to have, it's going to be so much easier on you though, Mick, I would say, because...
you definitely took one for the team there, brother. You definitely took one for the team there.
Carl, our lovely colleague in the background that we've got, that did the lion's share of the work along with our other colleague Connor, with getting things set up, but making sure there wasn't too much feedback, because doing these hybrid shows, we're going to be doing more and more of them in all sorts of different formats. And these guys did a lot of grunt work to get things going. So yours will be smooth sailing, not too much rehearsing, I assume.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. So, yeah.
With that in mind, guys, Rich is going to quickly take us through. We've got a deal on for everybody watching this evening. Rich, what is that?
So anyone that buys a bottle of Björksav or Björksav, you get a buy bottle of that, you'll get 40% off of any of the other bottles. So hopefully there's two in there that you like. So if you buy a bottle of Björksav, get 40% off of one other core range bottle, and that's active from, I think, as of 7 p.m. tonight. So and the code for that, what would the code is Björksav
40.
40, yeah, and you don't need to worry about the umlaut, the dots over the O. Just I think you hopefully have a code going across the bottom. But yeah, Björksav 40, and you'll get that deal. And that's probably enough of the preamble stuff, Mick, do you think? And we'll a couple of other little points before we move in.
Yeah, so ladies and gentlemen, watching from home, etc., please comment and ask questions as we go. Like I said at the beginning, that'd be really good for us as well. That lets us know what information you want to know. And if you've got any announcements of your own as well, somebody's birthday, your anniversary or whatever, we'll give you a wee skull and a wee shout out, so that's not a problem. So also let us know if this is your first time at a whiskey tasting or a first Mackmyra tasting, or you're a regular flyer with us. We've seen a couple of familiar names in the comments already, so it's great to have everybody here. So Rich, start us off. Give us a quick fly into Mackmyra, please.
That's it, yeah. And then hopefully everyone by now, if you haven't already, pop some Brooks whiskey in your glass. If we haven't said it, I'm sure, Mick, I'm sorry if I've repeat something you've said, but you don't need to drink the whole 50ml in one go. If you want to hold a little bit back so that you can come back and explore it later, or if you do want to pour the whole thing and have it, fill your boots, of course, drink responsibly and enjoy yourself, but don't feel obliged to pour the entire thing, because 5 of those, in quick succession could make some people rather merry.
Send you to bed early.
So Mackmyra, we're Sweden's first single malt whiskey distillery. Production began in 1999. The idea first came about in 1998 when our 8 founding members had all been friends at university, decided to keep in touch with one another by going on ski trips once a year. And one fateful year in 98, somebody said at some point through some of the bottles that they brought along with them, why is nobody making whiskey in Sweden? There's an enormous appetite for single malt whiskey over there. I think the last I heard, there are more whiskey clubs per capita in Sweden than any other country in the world. But nobody would be making anything. Nobody would be making any single malt. There was a grain distillery sometime in the 60s, I believe, a short-lived grain distillery. So 99 it began. Aside from setting out to make good whiskey, there were sort of 3 founding principles, and they were be Swedish, be innovative, and be sustainable. And those are three principles that are still, Mick and I see on a daily basis, still very much followed through from 99 back, all the way to now. The being Swedish side, there's lots to that, and we'll expand on much of it, I'm sure, as we go through. But one of the most simple ways that they've sort of worked to achieve that is just by having only Swedish ingredients that are used. So all of the barley that we use is from Sweden. All of the peat that we use in our smoky recipe is from Sweden. The yeast, the water, of course, as well. So and we actually malt and peat our own barley for our peated stuff rather than send to abroad, because we couldn't get it from Sweden when they started. So great lengths to make sure that everything's Swedish. On the innovation side, probably the most simple one to talk about there would be using different casks, not run-of-the-mill stuff. It's not all ex-bourbon, it's not all Oloroso sherry. Two excellent casks to mature whiskey, and of course, but as we get to dram number 3, we'll talk a bit more about some of the innovation side there around casks with us. And sustainability, we'll talk about in detail with the Mac. But, we've got a distillery that makes us incredibly sustainable and very green as well. We've been in 3 locations since we started. First of all, a series of gardens of the founders. Whenever a neighbour complained, they moved from one garden to the next, as they were spent the first 3 years experimenting with different types of barley, different types of recipe and things that they could try and make an end product with. 2002, we moved into the Brooks distillery, which we'll expand upon with the Brooks whiskey when we get into it. Is a picture here we can see, and exactly what we assume all whiskey distilleries in Sweden would look like, covered in snow. Not always the case, because here we can see it from above. It's on a beautiful little sort of island enclosed by 2 rivers. There we can see an old mill that was converted by us to become a whiskey distillery. 2011, 2012 moved into the Gravity distillery that I alluded to a moment ago. So that's big tall distillery, starts at the top, comes at the bottom, saves a lot of energy, not pumping things from one room to the next. We've got warehouses all over Sweden, and one in Germany as well. Forest warehouse next to the distillery, the one that we're most famous for people who are familiar with Mackmyra already, will probably have heard about the Budas mines. So about 99% of our whiskey is matured 50 meters below ground in these old iron ore mines. Modernized, but very much still mine vibe down there. We've got one on top of a mountain. We've got one, a couple on little islands here and there, and then one, as I said, over in Germany. This is Fjorderholmene. It's part of the Stockholm archipelago, and the warehouse we have there is an old converted munitions store that used to store torpedoes for the Swedish Navy, and now stores lots of 30-litre casks for us. 3 key ranges, 2 of which we're trying this evening. We've got the Core Range, Seasonal Range, Moment Range. Core is to give examples of what we can do and what we sort of trying to make Swedish whiskey about. Seasonal Range, which the Björksav falls into, comes out twice a year. A different release, I should say, comes out twice a year. Limited edition will be attuned to whichever season it's come out along with. And then we have our Moment Range, which are sort of our upper tier, £100 a bottle or so whiskies. There'll only ever be sort of 2,000 or 4,000 perhaps bottles that are ever released with each one of those, and all very unique, and stories behind them and things as well. Last couple of things I should say then, but probably Angela D'Orazio. She's, again, if you're familiar with us, you may well have heard about her before. Quite a big name in whiskey. She's the second woman to be inducted into the Whiskey Magazine Hall of Fame. This is her there. She is responsible for creating all of our whiskies. Everything that we've got here this evening is her creation. She's decided which types of cask to use, how many of this, how many of that, and marrying them together to come up with the end final product. Her title with us is Chief Nose Officer. Other single malt distillers would have them called Master Blender. She creates everything, and I think that's probably about it, Mick. I think there's so much stuff we can talk about, but exactly. We've had a habit before of making this beginning bit a bit too long, and I think we're at 1:15 now, and appreciate we've told everyone to get their whiskey in a glass, so hopefully they've been enjoying something at home. But I'd say, Mick, I'll hand over to you, if I may, and talk a little bit about what Brooks whiskey is and let them know what they've got.
Perfect. So, guys, what you've got in your glass at the moment is Brooks whiskey. Yeah, it is 41.4% ABV. Yeah, so it's not color corrected, but it is slightly chill filtered. Okay, So the cask recipe that went into making what's in your glass was casks that are 200 litre first fill bourbon casks, 100 litre first fill Swedish oak casks of our unpeated recipe, 100 litre first fill sherry casks, again unpeated, and one single 200 litre ex-bourbon smoketail cask. And we'll talk a bit about smoketail when we get onto Svensk Glück, but if you do pick up a small hint of smoke through it, either on the nose or on the palate, that's why. Me and Rich, we don't get it at all. We just don't. We just never have. And that's okay. It doesn't mean we're broken or you're broken if you got it. Okay? Each individual person's tasting notes and what they get is very, very individual. Okay? So we do this one first, not only because this was the first core release that we had from Mackmyra Björksav, our first proper grown-up distillery that we moved into, like Rich said, in 2002. But it's probably got the softest sort of profile. You know, we often joke and refer to it as our breakfast whiskey. And we'll always say as well, we don't suggest drinking whiskey for breakfast. Okay? It's just a wee joke. But also...
I think we don't say don't drink it for breakfast, absolutely. But it could be an accompaniment with it. Should you have, a reason that that would warrant having a glass of whiskey with breakfast after the races or a celebratory day, but not in lieu of breakfast. I think we'd be careful to that. Yeah.
Well, yeah, definitely. So we're always quite careful about the small print on this one, guys. Okay. Yeah, exactly. But also it allows us to talk about a little bit about the early days. So Richard's already mentioned that we first began producing in 1999 out of 100 litre still, which they built and welded themselves, and we had small cuts from that, which led us then on to sort of pioneer the 30 litre casks, which sort of is the backbone of Mackmyra, really. And we still do that now. In fact, we've just expanded as well. We've added another warehouse to the collection of warehouses on a barge in Paris on the River Seine. Believe it or not. So if you want to know a bit more about that, have a look on mackmyra.co.uk or mackmyra.com. Takes you all to the same place now. So 2002, like Rich said, we moved into our first proper distillery, Brooks Distillery. We brought over two big Forsyth stills, a 10,000 litre wash still and an 8,000 litre spirit still. And like Rich said, we stayed there until 2011, and then we moved into the Grythyttan distillery, which Rich will talk a little bit more about, a bit more in depth into Mac. But Brooks is, it really allowed us so the Brooks Distillery really allowed us to grow and become known on the world stage. We were the first. There's now a good 5 or 6 Swedish distilleries, but we're the first, and we are the biggest producer, and hopefully we're the most well known as well. I think we're the most well known, but we'll see. But we're definitely the biggest, and we were definitely the first, which is always nice. But most of the whiskies we're drinking tonight were in fact distilled at Brooks Distillery. We're starting now to get to an age where some of our newer releases that are going to come out are going to be wholly from the Grythyttan Distillery. But a good majority of the liquid you're going to drink tonight has come from the Brooks Distillery. And believe it or not, Brooks is at the foundation of the new distillery, which Rich will talk a little bit more about as well. There's actually a bottle of Brooks in the foundations of the Grythyttan Distillery, which I think is really freaking cool, Rich. What do you think?
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, massively. So placed into the foundation, concreted over, and then the Grythyttan Distillery built atop it. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. So, a nice big shout out there for Steve Antill. Steve, congratulations. So this is his first tasting. He's loving the whiskey in the chat. Thank you very much, sir. Really appreciate that. And celebrating a new job from tomorrow as well. Nice one, Steve. Don't drink all your samples this evening then. It's easy. Maybe leave that majority of the samples for the weekend, sir, okay? But congratulations on your new job, Steve. Fantastic. And I believe a little bit further up, one of our regular flyers, Andrew Bullingham, good old bully, put some in the freezer. There you go. So at the beginning of this year, for the first time ever, I whacked a bottle of Brooks into the freezer. And then me and Rich tried it live on air. And it was like, we didn't know what was going to happen. And it was really, really good. So one of the key takeaway points that me and Rich do like to, not hammer home, but suggest to people is drink the whiskey and you like it. Okay? We're not Yeah, we're not in a hunting lodge with stuffy people and, oh no, I only take my, 3 fingers of a single malt whiskey and I must be drunk and neat and stuff. No, doesn't matter. If you want a bit of ice in it, put some ice in it. Bit of water, put some water in it. If you want to chuck some lemon Fanta in it, knock yourselves out, guys. Do you know what I mean? But all I ask is you try it neat first and just know whatever you're going to add to your whiskey on completion, you roughly know what it's going to do to it, okay? That's all I ask. But yeah, enjoy responsibly, but the main thing is enjoy it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah,
yeah, couldn't agree more. Yeah, drink it however you like.
Definitely. So, guys, please keep the comments and that coming in. Please ask us any questions. Another regular flyer with us this evening is Kevin Blair. Only a wee stop by. So, a good point to notice as well is Friday night at 7 o'clock. The last of the Grand Tea, so the green tea cask finished whiskey that we had last year, goes on sale. So so be quick on that one because there really is not many bottles of that left at all.
Yeah, okay. A friend of mine asked if I could arrange getting a bottle put aside for him, and I was told I was shut down immediately. So
we've both asked our bosses. They've gone, guys, do you want another bottle for yourselves? Get in the queue with the rest of everybody else. Okay, fair enough. That's
how few bottles there are left of it. That we can't even take the perks of the job and get one put aside for
exactly.
A close mate of mine as well. I was miffed, but I suppose that is fair. It keeps things fair.
Exactly.
So
we don't get any special treatment just because we peddle the stuff, guys. Okay.
Mick, should we do a bit of tasting stuff? I think I'd encourage people to write their notes in. Anything that people are finding, please let us know. If you can find something and put a name to it, put it in there. I think Mick said, there's no wrong answers. Whatever you find is what you find. Mick, what are your and I've heard yours before, but every now and then something new comes in.
Nothing new today, Rich. Unfortunately, nothing new. Again, it's just still that old childhood favourite of mine. Not that I was drinking whiskey as a kid, but old childhood flavour that on the nose and on the palate comes in straight away. Foam bananas, guys. Yeah, remember the old sweets next to the till or wherever they were in the local shops here. All day, every day. It's just lovely. It is refreshing. I don't get that smoke hit though, Rich. Do you know what I mean?
No, I don't find it.
Isn't the official tasting notes? I still don't get it.
It's so subtle. I say so subtle. I mean, I assume it must be so subtle that I can't find it. But then you and I drink quite a lot of peated whiskey, so
we do. Maybe we're just a bit new to it, Rich. Really, because we do drink stuff. Yeah,
built a resistance to it. But I suppose if somebody, because I think 1 in 7,000 people have got a high sensitivity to peat, to smoke flavors and notes and things, they're likely to find it, or someone that hasn't had a huge amount of peated whiskey before might find it because it's a bit more obvious to them. Mick, I think you said a few words there with it, but I was just thinking, so with Brooks Whisky, if you're going to sum it up in 3 words or like 3 sort of words or phrases, I think for me, light and bright, I'll sort of put those two together because it's very approachable. It is something that you could have. 41.4% ABV. It's sort of quite a nice, low, relaxed ABV to have. But there's a bit of body to it as well. So I'd say it's sort of light and bright, but there's a little bit of texture to it that I find running through. I think that the use of the smoke tail recipe, that element of smoke in there, I imagine Angela's part of the reason she's had it, not just for balance of flavour, but to achieve some texture, because with peat comes texture. I think many of us would know. Not everyone, of course, but and then, sort of fruity and juicy. I'll say that. Because there's the banana to it, there's apple, there's pear, but foam bananas as you said. I think definitely.
So I think my 3, Rich, would be fresh, approachable, foam bananas.
Cool. Yeah,
I think that would be my 3. And a lovely comment there from Bully again. If you've had someone who doesn't like whiskey, introduce them to Brooks. It changed Bully's wife's mind. So, Mr. Bully. Well, welcome to the world of whiskey. You probably got no choice living with Bully in all fairness, but all the same, it's nice that you can enjoy it with him, and I'm glad that Brooks did that for you. And Stephen, nice fresh fruity flavours in the nose, green apples, pears, some savoury malt and white wine, yeah, nice. Taste is malty and gently sweet, honey with alcohol tones, yeah. Finish has some oaky bitterness, is a bit dry. Okay, cool.
Good notes there.
Stephen. Very good, yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Great notes. Thank you so much for sharing. I think that that bit. So I said, sort of fruity and juicy. That's definitely on the palate for me. But I think I would concur with Stephen a bit there that it dries out towards the end of the finish. That's for sure. Yeah, I would concur with that. Yeah. We've got bananas again, and then Mark said, I love the faux banana note. Totally get it now that you mention it. Yeah, I think that that little bit of, we always ask people for their notes first, just so that we're not leading people too much, but then leading people a bit. And because Mick, you and I, we take part, but in as many tastings as you and I actually host for work with the different clubs and groups that we're in and things. And I find it is useful sometimes if I can't quite put a word to something. I hear somebody say it, and I think actually that is in there. And you don't know. Sometimes you can't be 100% sure if it's just the power of suggestion, or if it was just that you needed that little nudge to get over the line to be able to put a word to it. But I think
if you're happy with that, right?
That's the key.
Do you know what I mean? If you're happy with that tasting note yourself, and you can justify it to yourself, you don't have to justify it to anybody else. But if you can justify it to yourself and go, "That's what I'm getting. That's what I couldn't put my finger on. That's it right there," then that's cool beans by me.
I think you've rounded off my point perfectly with that, Mick. I think that's on the money. I would say a quick note to Bully, just saying about getting his wife involved through Brooks Whisky. I think you've opened a can of worms there. I hope you realise my missus didn't like whiskey really until she met me, and then slowly started getting more and more into it. And she loves peated drams.
He's more
and some of my favoured ones behind me are peated, and sometimes I come to them and there's a fair chunk has disappeared from the bottle. So careful, Bully. You've let yourself in for something there, I think. But glad that you brought someone else into the mix, into the fold. So Mick, if
I think that wraps us up for Brooks. I think we've covered the tasting notes. We've covered everybody's questions for that one. So that's up. First impression was a bit overripe banana. Yeah, brilliant. Happy with that, guys. Some great notes coming in. So please, as we go through, please keep them coming. Please ask us any questions that you might have. And while you're thinking of maybe some questions, get yourself a Mac poured. That's dram number 2 coming up, and there's Mac and Mac. That's Carl's really cute kitten, who's not such a kitten anymore. That's an old photo. You have to do King Kong Mac next to Mac next time, Carl, I think. And Rich, take us away with the Mac.
Yeah, so Mac, that's we've just seen probably less good of you is that one with a little kitten who belongs, if a cat can belong to anyone, of course, but to Carl, our colleague we've got pulling the strings in the background. So Mac, 40% ABV, whereas Brooks Whisky, when Mick was going through the list of casks that we use, the different types of casks, bourbon, Oloroso, Swedish oak and things, this one is one of the few whiskies we have that is, well, actually, it's probably the simplest cask recipe of any of them, in that it's just the one type of cask that's been used. So American oak casks have been used for this. So I think it'll be virgin and first fill American oak. So once we've taken a bit of Mac out of it, a bit more goes back in. So it's not had anything else in before. So from that, you will get anyone that's into bourbons at all or American whiskies. More often than not, that will be, in fact, almost entirely, but not exclusively, of course, matured in American oak barrels. Bourbon will be American oak barrels, I'll say, but American whiskey can be a bit wider. Anyway, from there, what you will get, and from that type of wood, from white oak, will be lots of vanillas and caramels and things. So what we have, what we hear relatively often is people sort of comparing this to a fruitier bourbon. Our spirit character, our DNA, our new make spirit. So as soon as it comes off the still, before it goes into a cask, if you were to try that, which you can buy the bottle actually in a product we have called Grythyttan, you probably find something in three words again would be, 3 words or phrases would be orchard fruits, warming spices and sort of herbal undertones to it. So, but lots of fruits being the main thing for me. And with this, that sort of fruits, the apples, the pears, pear drops maybe, teaming up and working together with the caramel and the vanilla, I think just go well together. Yeah. Very well indeed. I think that's that. I mean, that's the cask makeup for it. That's the recipe that we have.
Yes, it's very uncomplicated, very straight to the point. It's designed for a reason. It's not supposed to be an in-depth, deep dive fangirly whiskey. It's made to be very versatile, to be enjoyed.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, and a different bottle design to the others that we have, sort of to stand out a bit more in the back bar. This is something that came out to. It's a single malt whiskey. It's there to be to be sipped and enjoyed neat or with a few drops of water, or to be used, as Micky, the word that you used was versatile. It's designed to go well into different cocktails and things like that as well, so that it would. To be perfectly honest, to probably have something that would be good for us to get into the on-trade, as much as somebody buying a bottle of it to have at home, something that could keep both worlds happy, basically. And that's what this product is. It's the first whiskey that's been 100% made at the Gravity distillery. So the others that we have are from the old distillery, from the Brooks distillery, because they're a bit on the older side. This is one that's been made from the Gravity distillery, where we moved into in 2012, or started production in 2012, finished building 2011. First one that says, Mick, probably time to talk a little bit maybe about the Gravity distillery.
You are perfectly placed, Rich, to lead us to talk about the Gravity distillery, as you are just back from there.
After joining Mackmyra, the February the 28th last year, having flights booked for the end of March, and then lockdown coming in on March 23rd. I've been waiting a year and a half, and your long wait still in place, and I'm so sorry, mate, but you will be there soon, I'm sure. Finally managed to get over there and see it. So I've actually been to the top of the distillery and had a look out from the roof bar and everything there. I'll say, I'll go through a little bit of or a little story perhaps, or just explain the Gravity distillery in a bit more detail, because it is, I think, to anyone that's new to whiskey, old to whiskey, I think it's an interesting setup that we have. But let us know your tasting notes and things as I go. Feel free to sort of pop them in the chat, and we'll have a look at them, or any questions that you have as we go as well. And DJ, I think I'll ask Micky to think up some cocktail examples as I go through. So the Gravity distillery production begins, I think it was 2011, 2012. It was one of those years production actually began. I think the building done 2011. Production 2012. But sort of
very end of 2011, Rich. I think. Okay, so that's something I probably should have clarified when I went over, but maybe on the next trip, or when you get there. 35 meters tall, 7 floors. We have the top floor is a roof bar. We can go up there at the end of a tasting. You can go up for a tasting event up there, or go up and just sort of sit on the balcony, have a look out around the forests. The production begins the floor below, so floor number 6. And what we have at the back of the distillery, and we can see represented here on the cross section, you can see the big green silos at the back. Now, they obviously do go top to bottom. We have one silo filled with unpeated barley, one silo filled with peated barley, and there's a little elevator, a little sort of upside down screwdriver thing in the middle of them that takes the grain up to the top, then goes down and begins the production process from floor number 6. So starting with sort of sieving, milling, mashing, and we can see fermentation tanks above the copper pot stills on the right hand side. That's where you're making let's call it a porridge, for want of a better or more scientific term, into your beer, and then taking that beer, more or less beer, putting it into the stills, distilling it, separating your parts out so that you can end up with your new make spirit at the end, which is then collected at the bottom and stored there until it's taken off to be filled into casks. It's eco-friendly since 2012, we call it there, and you can see this, it says about 45% less energy compared to a traditional distillery. Traditional basically being a distillery done a horizontal fashion, pumping things from one room to the next, using an awful lot of energy in doing so, as well as energy that we save, in addition to just having Gravity take the product from one floor down to the next.
we actually, it's chock full of other things as well, big heat transfer points where at various points in the production process, heat is generated or needs to be generated. Any excess heat that's sort of left over at the end gets collected and stored in this sort of like closed circuit water system that then goes around the distillery, either heating up other parts of it for, you know, the offices in the colder months, or going off to be stored in this big power station, hot water sort of transfer station outside to then be stored and used to help heat up other parts of it or to get them on their way. There's no energy is wasted. Well, I say, you know, with an asterisk attached to it, of course. There's the draft that we have, the physical matter of the barley, once we've taken the starches and sugars out of it to then start making whiskey from it, the physical stuff that's left then gets sent off to a biofuel plant a number of miles away and turned into biofuel as well. So, you know, so nothing goes to waste whatsoever there. So carbon neutral distillery, and the first of its kind in the world that we know of. It's definitely the first purpose built one that we know of. There are one or two other distilleries around, I think in Scotland as well, that have utilised gravity in this or that part of their production. So here or there, they will take advantage of the fact that they can have one bit of equipment lower than the other, for example. But ours is the first ever purpose-built vertical distillery that we have dubbed Gravity Distillery. There is one, Mick, in Leith that we know about being built. Yeah. And I really, really, really hope that we'll see more and more of them appear as well, because it just makes so much sense. I mean, even you know, obviously from the environmental perspective, which is the most important thing, but even just from it just makes sense, I think, for businesses like commercially to do it, and maybe not purpose building a distillery or something, but retrofitting one or something, you know, something to do, because the amount of money that you save on energy consumption as well, 45% is ridiculous amount of energy less to be using. So hopefully we see more and more of it. Hopefully, you know, we've started a trend. This one in Leith, I'd be very curious to see.
As well. The footprint of the distillery is a lot smaller.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, so you can build it in more urban areas, as they're doing in Leith in Edinburgh as well. You don't need a big area to do it, so you can see some more inner city distilleries popping up as well. And good luck to anyone doing it, because I think it's just an awesome thing to have. So yes, I mean that's probably a bit of an explanation about the Gravity Distillery. You know, it's situated next to Yavla, I should say. That's where Mackmyra is. That's where we're from. The Brooks Distillery, the original distillery, is in an actual place called Mackmyra. So Yavla, you can see here with the red dot above it, our distillery is like on the edge of the town, basically, where the forest begins, and our roof bar sort of looks out over it. But Carl, if you could pop that up once more, please. The white arrow, probably a bit more to the right-hand side of where the right arrow is pointing, is where the original distillery was. So about 15 kilometres to the west of our current distillery is where the original one was, in a place called Mackmyra, or if you pronounce it as they might do in Sweden, Mackmyra. Which means, Mick, do you want to let us know what it means? Because it's you and I love it.
So Mackmyra, broken down into two. Mack in like annoying insect, like a midge, yeah, and Myra being like a mire or swamp. So basically Mackmyra is midge swamp. That's the only way, you know. It doesn't sound as romantic.
I think it sounds excellent. It adds a bit of levity into the whiskey industry. I think, without a doubt.
But you know, it's people that say, "Oh, you're just trying to like copy Scotch and stuff." We're not. Mackmyra is an actual place. But then when you describe that, it's like very west coast of Scotland, isn't it? You know, with like the midges and stuff like that. So. Great tasting note there from Stephen again. On the nose, bananas, wine, gums, muscat dessert wine. Taste a bit watery, bananas, lemon, candied fruit, slightly grainy. Okay, interesting. And on the finish, vanilla, some bitter wood, sweet, fruity, syrupy notes, initially pretty short. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I can get behind that.
Nice and deep there, Stephen. Thank you.
So I think that slightly grainy part. I mean, I don't want to put words into Stephen's mouth, of course, but I wonder if that might be coming from grain whiskey. To me, is often pretty damn sweet. For the most part, at least what I've tried, and that this has got a lot of sweetness to it. So I think there'll probably be some crossover between the sweetness in here that you can get and the sweetness that you find in grain whiskey. Yeah.
No, definitely. So just to cover a couple of cocktails, a Boulevardier is always quite good. I personally find that as well. So equal parts of Mac, sweet vermouth, and Campari. Mix them together in a mixing glass or whatever you've got, really, with some ice. Mix it till it's really, really cold, and then strain that into a glass of your choice. Preferably like a champagne coupe or something like that. And then garnish with a nice orange peel twist. That's always quite a good standout one for me. I quite like that one.
Yeah, Mick, you're a dab hand with a cocktail, so I mean, I'm not going to even try and follow.
I do try, Rich. I do try.
Yeah.
Which all cocktail people, if we've got any bar people or cocktail loving people, stay tuned early next year. For some potentially exciting news to come out from that. So if there's any more comments about Mac, that would be great. If not, we shall go into dram number 3, which is our seasonal for today. It is Björksav, which means birch sap. And to kick us off with that, Carl, take us away with the video, please, sir. I like that video. It's short, but it does explain Björksav though, and why we've produced Björksav for this time of the year. In
an abstract way, as I would explain it, rather than sort of a literal, but it definitely gives the feeling, the feeling that should come. Yeah.
So there, you've got that first initial meltings of the snow and the thawing of the ice, just as we're breaking in to that very first part of spring. And that's when the birch sap is harvested. So we're continuing, our proud tradition of challenging the whiskey norms and highlighting Swedish nature, flavors, and craftsmanship. Like Rich said at the beginning when he said about the seasonals, you know what I mean? It's to represent that time of the year, yeah. And that goes, with the flavors, craftsmanship. And nature as well, especially the past couple of releases we've had. So in keeping with this approach, this year's spring edition, Björksav, is a whiskey that provides a clear sign of spring as the opening of the birch buds, like you saw in the video. Sorry, excuse me. So like all of our seasonal releases, Björksav is a limited edition single malt. We release 2 a year, like we said at the beginning, which are adapted to the prevailing season's flavours. We've had some really great success with this over the last 16 years. Wow, that's a lot. That's a lot. That's quite a back catalogue of whiskey there, and they've all been absolutely fantastic. So the seasonals have also helped the distillery gain a positive international reputation as well. So this is where really the innovation from our 3 pillars comes in. Yeah, we're not shackled by a governing body. So like the guys that do Scotch, and obviously me and Rich really do like our Scotch as well, but they're somewhat handcuffed, shall we say, by the SWA, and that's the rules that they stick by. Everybody's fairly happy with that, but we don't have that governing body looking over us, so we can be a bit. I don't want to say looser because that's probably the wrong term, but we could be a bit more innovative. There you go. Yeah. That's that word. Yeah, innovative with our.
I'd say, Mick, if I may, perhaps we've got more room to manoeuvre. We're not quite as limited to the options that we have and the choice that we have, and that gives Angela. If you're an artist and a painter in particular, you've got more colours on your palette to choose from.
Exactly. Yeah. So with that in mind, we worked with the Swedish artisan winery. Grythyttan vin. So, like us,
Yeah.
Grythyttan use exceptional crafting skills. They show the consideration and respect for nature. And they only use the natural ingredients. So this, the fresh, the delicately sweet Björk or the birch sap has resulted in uniquely crafted Swedish whiskey. And they said Scottish whiskey then for some reason, because we just talked about Scotch then, honestly. And that is ready to join, so we like to see ourselves as, pioneers in world whiskey as well, especially new world whiskey. So on Mackmyra.com, you can find, in fact, you can't at the minute, so that's just undergoing. But when that all comes back online properly, you'll be able to find our product sheets, where we literally give a breakdown of what goes into the whiskey. We give a synopsis of the whiskey, we give tasting notes, and we give the cask profile as well. We've taken it one step further going forward from this year. And on our seasonals, we're breaking down the cask makeup into percentages. So how many, the percentage of each type of cask that goes into making up the recipe for the release. So in this, we always consider ourselves quite transparent anyway, but this is that one step further again, or two steps further probably. It is pretty decent leap. So in the liquid in the glass in front of you, 30% of it comes from ex-bourbon casks. 24% comes from ex-Oloroso casks. 20%, another 20% comes from the birch sap wine casks. We pretty much base this recipe around. We've got 18% there that we call different types of seasoned casks. That's a few different smaller casks that we've got knocking about around the warehouse, etc. We've used as a bit of like salt and pepper, really, to lift some of the other characters coming through already in the spirit. And then the last 8% of the recipe is made up of Swedish oak. When we first tried this, Rich, we both tried it at very, very similar times, and we're both exactly, as we were talking about it, that our deliveries came. So we both got to try this straight off the delivery van. And if anybody has worked in retail or anything like that, and they've had any like foodstuffs or whatever delivered and drinks delivered to them, it comes off pretty much like a refrigerated Arctic lorry. And they come pretty cold, like straight out the fridge sort of thing, really. So me and Rich got to try this for the first time, straight out of the fridge, as it were. And you know what? I really like it like that. It is really dead refreshing. But guys, please let us know what you think, Stephen. I'm looking forward to, if you're going to do another set of in-depth tasting notes there. That'd be really good to see what you think. Me and Rich could. Not astonish you, probably the wrong word, but give you the full lowdown of what Angela's written officially. So maybe we'll have a talk about it first, and then maybe we'll cover that. But no, for me, Björksav, I really quite enjoy our spring seasonal stuff, Rich. On Friday we said goodbye to green tea. Earlier on this year, we said goodbye to Appleblom, which was the spring summer from 2018. 2019.
Grythyttan as well, or the latter part of last year, maybe.
Yeah.
Sort of melding together.
But, so these do come in quite limited numbers, like 15,000 bottles a run. And once they're gone, they're gone. But they always amaze me. I think, they can't better this. This is going to be great. Then next year, something comes out and it's like, whoa, they do what? That's fantastic. I still can't believe it, right? And obviously, we get some privy inside information because of our job. And I'm like, no way. And it comes out, and you go, can't wait for this. And you taste it, and you go, that's so much better than I thought it was going to be. And I thought it was going to be great anyway. And that's exactly what I get with Björksav. It's nice. It's perfect for this time of the year as well. And again, this does go quite well into into like a highball. Do you know what I mean? So nicely over ice, and just some ginger ale or something maybe even a bit lighter, something like an Indian tonic water or something. Just to long it out and give it a bit more refreshness. But yeah, absolutely fantastic, Rich. How do you like your beer itself?
It's spring in a glass for me. I mean, this is the spring release because, the seasonals, we've got a spring, summer release. And then later in the year, we have an autumn, winter release. this has been spring in a glass since we first tried it. I think because the seasonals, you know, we've spoken a little bit about it, are meant to be spirit, the flavour sort of spirit led, rather than, I'm not sort of saying it's spirity, I'm saying it's spirit led rather than sort of wood driven, whereas the moments are about sort of seeing what you know, different types of casks can do in a bigger way. So this, you've got the Mackmyra DNA in this, that freshness, the orchard fruits, the warming spices, bit of herbal note in the background. But then there's just something extra to it as well. So the introduction of the birch sap casks, which nobody else uses to make whiskey. I've never seen a single person ever use it. And you know, Mick and I have definitely explored, not even close to all whiskey, of course, not even remotely close. But, you know, but we are explorers in whiskey, and we like to try new things, and I've not seen anyone else ever do it. So there's just something interesting and unique to it. I think we've got, Stephen's put his taste notes in as well. And D-Jax, I'm going to call you D-Jax unless I've got to call you Yax, and it's a silent D. You let me know, and we'll give him a shout out. But one thing that he said there, just to skip quickly to that, so it feels awesome on the tongue. One of the first things that Mick, you and I both said when we tried this was about the texture. There's a texture, you can notice a bit of texture on the nose, and I think you know, like Klein Leash, you know, the everyone's sort of favourite Highland whiskey, you can get that texture on the nose, you can get it on the palate, you can get it on the finish. I think this is, whilst it's its own thing, that's what I would sort of equate it to or use as a reference, because the texture in this, I think, is just palpable throughout. So that feeling awesome on the tongue. Yeah, D-Jax or Yax, whatever, however I should be addressing you, let me know. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. But yeah, keen to go back, Mick, if you would take us through Stephen's notes.
So on the nose, Stephen says it's flowery, spicy wood, brown sugar, light citrus, and cherry notes. Nice, I like that. That's really good, Stephen. On the palate, gentle elderflower, spicy lime, and on the finish, fruity, spicy oak, forest notes, eucalyptus. Nice. Well picked up, Stephen. Well picked up.
We both said that, didn't we, Mick? Eucalyptus.
Yeah, you get that sort of mentally type thing through it. You know what I mean? And it's definitely, you know, and you've nailed it right there, Stephen. That's this eucalyptus. And obviously, when we did this and we had our product training with the chief nosing officer, with Angela, and that's one of the things that she likes to highlight as well, is you are getting that slightly refreshing type highlight, like, and that's going to add to the mouthfeel as well. That Yax was on about as well. That awesome on the tongue. That's that. So imagine, you know, have you ever used that mint body wash?
Do you want the green one?
Yeah. It's like 6,000 mint leaves or something like that. Right? Per bottle and stuff, or whatever the number is. I don't know, but I use that a lot, and it gives you that once you've dried off, and like, you know, there's a bit of a breeze coming through the bathroom window, you can feel it. It's like, ooh, that's quite nice. And that's what I think that's what that does. Not as extreme as that, obviously, but there's elements of that come through, and I think that's the awesome feeling on the tongue. I don't know.
I've still got that visual in my mind, and I'm thinking, no, we need to put you on a poster, Mick, fresh out the shower, toweling off, and
nobody wants to see that.
Can you feel the eucalyptus? We'll put that in.
Fantastic. Lovely comment from Mark there as well.
Yeah. So really nice. That takes me back to the Swedish north in summer. Can imagine nursing a dram of that in the mountains in the midnight sun. Very romantic, sort of poetic sort of scene setting there, I think. But a bit more, a better visual than the one you gave us, Mick, I would say.
Without questionable doubt. But no, Mark, that's strange to say that. So our very first seasonal release for the winter of 2013 was Midnight Sol, or Midnight Sun, and that contained as well our very first foray into Björksav wine cask finish.
Oh, I didn't know that. Was in there. Yeah, oh, very good, awesome. I wonder how far north you're talking, Mark, because in my trip to Sweden, I've just come back from. I actually drove up to the High Coast Distillery to do a bit of opposition research. And just because I'm a fan, I've got a couple of their bottles behind me anyway. I thought I'd go and have a look. But that's about as far north as I've got, but not quite as far north enough to see mountains, or at least close to the Norwegian border. Could be, yeah.
Mark, you try that, son. You let me know how you get on with that, okay?
Make sure you save a little bit of your sample and do it, and then you let us know how you've got on with it. Bit of ice, maybe some. Mick, you grow mint on your windowsill. You're always talking about your mint plant. Maybe a sprig of mint in the top as well.
I think I might have to, Rich. I'll have a wee play about with that. My favourite cocktail at the moment is a Black Manhattan, which is traditionally done with bourbon, Amaro, and some orange bitters. I've been playing about with that a little bit, and I quite like Svensk with the Amaro. So I might have to have a play about with Björksav and maybe some Bela Liqueur or something like that, which is a Portuguese liqueur, which is quite nice. But it might be a bit too sweet though. But I'll have a play and some mint through that and see how we get on with that. Might have to go a bit heavier on the bitters because of the sweetness of what those two will bring. But I think I might have to have a play about with that.
I'll see. Probably a quick moment for a shameless corporate plug. Talk about the deal again, just as on the Björksav. I think if anyone has taken a shine to the Björksav, wanted to buy a bottle of it, if you have a look at Mackmyra.co.uk, Mackmyra.com, you'll be able to find a bottle there. And if you wanted to buy a bottle of one of the others that we're trying this evening too, you can get 40% off. So buy a bottle of Björksav, get 40% off of one of the Core Range bottles, and do that by putting the code Björksav with a simple O, but Björksav 40 into the code at checkout, and you'll get 40% off a Core Range bottle.
And that's live from now until midnight, guys. Okay.
Yeah, box ticked. I think done that box.
So that wraps us up. That wraps us up for Björksav, Rich. And probably a good time to head into dram number 4, which is probably our flagship. Seen as our flagship single malt, really. And you can see it just over my shoulder in the big orange. And Rich is going to take us through Svensk.
Yeah. So we pour a wee dram of it myself here. So Svensk. Anyone who's got any guesses as to what that translates into, pop them in the comments. So I'll leave it a moment or two and see if anyone can have a punt. But let me know what you think. Svensk or Svensk as we should more or less, I think, pronounce it. Let us know what you think it means. But this is one of the more simple cask recipes that we've had. That we have. Sorry, again, 46.1% ABV. It's all of this liquid has spent the first part of its life, or the longest part of its life, being matured in ex-bourbon casks. So first and second fill ex-bourbon casks. And we get our casks, we get a mixture of Heaven Hill, Four Roses, and Jack Daniels. Basically, they're the three that we have. Mark, Swedish oak. Thanks very much. Bully as well, but I think Bully you've had a clue before.
Bully's had this chat loads of times. That's cheating.
I'm so glad that they came in, these guesses, or not in Bully's case, he knew the answer, but Mark at least had a go. But then Mark's been to Sweden, so maybe he knows what Ek means. Maybe he's spent some time. But the next cask I had to talk about was Swedish oak, and that would have given the game away pretty quick. So all of the whiskey, all of the liquid here began first and second fill ex-bourbon casks, and then 10% of that liquid was taken and transferred into Swedish oak casks for the final 18 months or so of its maturation. So 10%. This is called Swedish oak, but only 10% of it has been in Swedish oak, and we do put a big 10 on the front of it as well, so that people know that it is only 10%. But any more than that, or for any longer than the 18 months it's gone in, Swedish oak is so powerful in its influence and has so many properties to it that it would overpower it. It would overwood it in a very short amount of time. You have to be quite careful, especially to get the final product that Angela wanted to have as well. Something that would be maybe not as approachable. I might say is like the Brooks whiskey, that's a bit softer in its profile. This is more spicy, bigger fruits, more robust, and sort of more full-bodied, I would say. And a lot of that will come from that small amount of time that is spent in Swedish oak. So Swedish oak itself is far fewer like wood sugars, ligins, and things than you'll find in white oak and American oak, and even a little bit more than you'd find in French oak and Spanish oak and things as well, because just how slow oak in Sweden will grow. Higher in tannins and things. So we air dry the staves before they get made into casks. They're air dried for 2 full summers, like 2 years we would say, but 2 seasons, 2 summer seasons, to try and flush out some of those tannins as well. Because if we were to kiln dry that wood before making it into staves, you lock a lot of things. You lock a lot of tannins and whatever properties in it gets sort of locked in. So we need to air dry them. Let the rain, splash over them, flush some of those tannins out, so that it's not too tannic at the other end when we're trying to use it. So I mean, Mick, talk a little bit. I mean, I've got my favourite stories talking about the bit of the history of Swedish oak. If I sort of dive in, and also I'll tell everyone a bit about sort of the origins, or at least for the trees that we use, but the origins of Swedish oak in Sweden. And while I'm doing that, please feel free to fire in any questions or notes and things as we go as well. But so Swedish oak really only grows there might be certain circumstances here and there where you can find an oak tree, but really Swedish oak grows in the southern part of Sweden. There's not a great deal of it there, but that's where it would be, but not enough for the appetites of the Swedish Empire in 1830. So, nearly 200 years ago now, Swedish king said at the time, we need to plant more trees so that generations from now we can have more wood to build ships for commerce, for empire building, for war, for whatever it might be. So they set about a program of planting trees. They sent a few tree emissaries around, or scouts, people to look at where a good place to sort of start a new forest would be, and they settled on a tiny little island called it's pronounced closely to Visingsö. If you were to read it on paper as a Brit such as I am, it would look like Visingo, but Visingsö Island, which is in the middle of Lake Vättern, which is I think Sweden's 2nd or 3rd largest lake. It's a bit further south of Stockholm. They found some trees there that grew for oak, grew pretty tall and pretty straight, and they said this looks like the perfect fertile land for us to build a new forest on and to plant trees. So they went about over the next 10 years planting I think as many as 300,000 oak trees, but to get them to engineer the trees, I suppose, so that they would be good for building ships. They wanted the trees to be as tall and as straight as possible, and have as few branches as possible, because those knots, not very good for building longer beams out to make ships and sturdy ships and masts and whatever it might be with. So in between the rows of trees that they planted elm trees, beech trees, birch, whatever it might be, in between, to encourage the oak trees to grow up and be tall and straight and not grow too many branches out until they could, feel the sun on their leaves or at the end of the shoots. And so I think we saw one picture show up a moment ago, or a couple that Carl showed, where you could see just how oddly narrow, tall and straight the trees were. Just not something you look at that, you wouldn't think that was an oak tree, but they've been I don't know, agriculturally engineered, would that be the right term? Or I think more or less to end up being like that. So what happened, unfortunately, 30 years after this program began, the first ironclad ships began sailing the seas. So I think the French had the first, and then there was a couple in the American Civil War in the 1860s. So only 30 years after these trees that take 150 to 180 years perhaps to be ready for harvest and to be mature, 30 years into that 150 or more years, the technology had begun to become obsolete. It was on the way out. So what we've ended up with is this enormous forest filled with trees for us to choose from in our Cooper. And Mickey, our favourite picture that we have that we ever use on tastings, I think if Carl can find it and pop it up, I'll let you talk a little bit about who this is and what's happening.
I'm weak at the knees. Ladies and gentlemen, that handsome man there is David Anderson, and he is our Cooper, 4th generation Cooper, and he works. His company is Tufnabrook. There's a second part to it, but I can't remember it or pronounce it. but the main part of it is Tough in the Brook, and that is David Anderson following his great granddad's footsteps there. And that's a 30-litre cask he has on fire in his hands there, and this is without questionable doubt the best picture in whiskey in my opinion. And I never get tired of looking at it, quite frankly. But no, Swedish oak that David works with. It's not a quick process, so he doesn't churn these out by the bucket load. He doesn't churn them out by the tens of thousands or the hundreds or even the tens, quite frankly. So he'll roughly get through about putting together maybe 3 to maybe 4 on a good day. Of 30-litre casks. So it's a fairly slow process. So when we do release the Swedish oak casks for our 30-litre programs, they do get snapped up quite quickly. So you have to be quite fast because there's never a lot of them available, quite frankly. So if you have a look on Mackmyra.com, have a look at the casks section. We'll be doing shows about this later on and that as well. But if you have a look at the cask section, we've got a couple of different 30-litre cask options for you guys to become cask owners yourself without having to like mortgage a house or anything like that, or wanting to know what to do with like 300 odd bottles, etc. So have a look at that, guys, and there's quite a lot of details about that on Mackmyra.com.
Cool, yeah. Well, so that's probably Swedish oak, a bit of a story about Swedish oak there, And I think one bit that we that I missed at the end was sometime in the 70s, the 1970s or the 1980s, when these trees were ready. There's been five generations of the same family have lived on this island and tended to this forest. And they called, I think, the Swedish Naval High Command or whoever it might have been, and said, "Listen, we've got all your trees ready. We've got your trees are ready for these ships. Where do you want them?" And they thought, well, maybe you hang on to them for a bit. So ended up being so great for flooring and lots of different other forms of carpentry. Have there's some demand there for it, but really what we've ended up with is just this enormous forest that will only ever be very slowly chipped away at, if you will, and other trees getting planted at the same time as others might be coming down. But very few. We take very, very, very few trees to make the cast that we do, because we don't make the Swedish oak cast in that high volume, that high quantity. As Micky said, it's such a time intensive thing, and they have so much flavour to give that we don't need a great deal of them, for our purposes, basically, because a small amount can give a lot. So notes that we've got. I think Mark's started us off with quite aptly on the nose, bit peppery too on the palate. Another good dram, I'd say that. So I often equate the introduction of Swedish oak into this, the first of these whiskies that we've tried with it in a larger proportion than some of the others, at least, as having like a cooking effect on the fruits. So like the apple to me has become baked apple, and because I can find cinnamon, like warming sort of cinnamon spices in this, it just makes me think apple pie, like warm apple cinnamon pie. And the pear, sort of baked pear, that banana is more browned on its way to being a bit of a rummy estery banana, but not quite. But then the spices being there too, definitely more pepper, black and white pepper I could find on this. Mick, I've heard you say the same in the past. Stephen, Mark's teed Stephen up there to come in with his notes as well. So Stephen, on the nose, some cereal notes, vanilla, grapes, tropical fruits. That's an interesting one. I enjoy getting a bit of tropicalness in there. I can't find, banana I suppose would constitute as tropical. But interesting. Taste, some pepper, tropical fruits again, pear, cereals, light citrus tones, and then on the finish, floral, hints of pepper, grassy, and gets dry to the end. Yeah. Jax, I'm going to call you Jax. Nose, burnt gingerbread. Yeah, I think I could see that. We've heard quite a lot of people say ginger before, Mick, right? And that sort of that gingerbread, sort of ginger being folded into a more sort of biscuity, which is in the nutty family, if you ask me. We've heard people say nuts with this as well, folded into that biscuity sort of sweeter ginger. Yeah, I could get into that. Fourth favourite so far, robust taste for sure. Yeah, I would say it's the most robust profile that we've had. I think like a good robust whiskey. Second for him after the Björksav or Björksav. Tropical fruits gets more in there with a drop of water. Yeah. So Mick said that at the very beginning. Have a bit of water on hand to add a drop or two. As Mick said, people should drink it however they damn well please. There's only one way to drink it. That's however you want to.
Yep.
The way that Mick and I both do is we always try something neat for the first time and then add water to taste if we think it needs it. Or sometimes, Mick, I know you do the same as me, actually, sometimes just to explore and see what happens with it.
Yeah,
I think that sounds like Stephen's been doing a bit of that there, just sort of seeing what else can happen. So adding a drop of water or two, I would encourage anyone who wants to fancies the adventure to see what happens.
Nice note from Billy that was just up there as well then. He thinks it's dangerously drinkable, robust, sweet and spicy. Nice. Yeah, pretty spot on with that, buddy. Pretty spot on with that.
Yeah. Nice. Well, Stephen said, yep. So, yeah, Stephen's on the adventure train. So, cheers to you, Stephen. I say score, and anyone else that is as well. Yeah.
Nice, guys. So, get that last little bit down you then, or move on to your next glass. And we shall hit up the last dram of the evening. Svensk Ruk. So Svensk Ruk is, tell me what Svensk Ruk is, guys. What does Ruk mean? So you all know what Svensk means now, and that's obviously Swedish. So let me know what Ruk means. Again, it's our magic number, 46.1%. Most Mackmyras are 46.1%. The only thing that changes in that is the Mac and the Brooks and one or two of the Moments range. All our seasonals are most things that we do release are at 46.1%. That's Angela's magic number. So it is natural coloured, it is non-chill filtered, all those good things that people like to hear about their whiskey. Yeah. With this one, Mark, absolutely fantastic. You can definitely tell you've definitely spent some time in Sweden. So Ruk is smoke. Yeah, so Svensk Ruk is Swedish smoke. It's the only one out of our lineup, basically, that comes in a 50 bottle. And that's just because we do slightly smaller batches. There's not as much of it. So we want to make sure that we get enough out there. Ruk in Dutch, a lot of these languages have got good crossover, Stephen. The umlaut on the O in rock, if you want to before of a better word, turns the O into an U. So it's Svensk Ruk.
Sorry, Mac, I was just going to say that's an interesting and quite accurate observation or thing to say there. That they're similar in Dutch, because one of our production assistants, who's acting now as our mash man, is a man called Kyle, who's originally from, he's lived in Sweden 7 years, he's in his late 20s now. He's from South Africa. And when I met him last week, I said, have you managed to learn much Swedish while you're here, or does everyone talk to you in English? But he said he learned it within 6 to 12 months, because if you have Afrikaans, in South Africa, Afrikaans is pretty much Dutch,
it's Dutch derived,
Yeah, exactly. It's from Dutch. All of the sort of the basics and the grammar and everything like that is in there. So for him, learning Swedish was actually a walk in the park. Whereas Mick, you and I can't even pronounce the names of some of our whiskies with great accuracy. So I wonder how well we get on trying to learn. We will endeavour to learn more than just school, though.
We will, Rich. We will. We're getting there. We'll pick the occasional bit up. We'll get in there. So, like I said, 46.1%, guys. This is our peated version. If you do not like peated whiskey, don't panic. This is not going to blow your face off. This is a really, really good introduction. We've had quite a lot of people on the tastings before, online and in real life, that said they don't really like peated whiskey. Had a wee sip and liked it, quite frankly. So it is smoky. It is quite herbaceous. Yeah, the casks that go into this, guys, are quite small in comparison to a lot of the other stuff. So there's only 30, 100, and 128 litre casks that went into this, in a combination of American oak, Swedish oak, and ex-bourbon casks that was saturated with Oloroso. So you do get a bit of sweetness in there. So me and Rich can talk hours and hours about sweet and smoke, because that's pretty much where our favourite, non-Mackmyra distillery comes from. That's pretty much what they do, and they do it really, really well. But we also do it very, very well as well, but with a slight different twist. So we, like Rich said earlier on, everything we do is Swedish. That includes our smoking process. So we use peat from the Karen Mossen. I'm not going to do my lame joke again, Rich, and mention the bog of Karens. But so we take locally sourced peat from the Karen Mossen, and we put that on a grate above a wood fire. We get that going. We get that smoking really, really quite well. And then on top of it, we place juniper twigs, believe it or not. Now, we don't go and rip up the bushes and stuff like that ourselves because that's quite irresponsible. The local power company does that for us. They go about and do their preventative maintenance around their power stations and lines, and just everything really. And they got to tidy up for access and to make sure that, there's not going to cause earths and this, that, and other good stuff. So when they cut all this stuff back, they give us the bushes and the berries. We use the juniper berries back at Mackmyra Björksav to produce our gin, or in our gin production. And we use the twigs for the rest of the branches on the peat fire. It gives it a really good, really smoky, herbaceous, quite a good thick smoke to go through our malt floor where the barley is drying. So we're one of only 12-ish distilleries in the world that still that floor malt and smoke our own barley on site. Like Rich alluded to earlier, we do use a fairly local maltings to get our non-peated barley from, but they don't have a smoking process. So we do that ourselves. And our smoke master is a great guy called Hakan, who looks after that. When we smoke, it takes about 3 days. And over that 3 days, the peat, the juniper, and the fire are replenished every 4 hours. Yeah. Every 4 hours over a 3-day period. And we do that about 3 times a year. And it's just fantastic. There's a couple of videos actually at the moment floating about on social media. If you go and have a look on our Instagram and on our Facebook, ladies and gentlemen, you'll see we posted up a couple of videos of the door being opened of the kiln and of the malt floor as well, and just this big billowing just smoke, and that comes out. And it's just like really like thick and resinous and stuff. You just tell you go, that's going to be awesome smelling, man. And we actually smoke or peat to a really quite decent ppm. So we actually smoke to 60 ppm. Now, anybody that's a bit of a peat geek knows that's fairly high. That's higher than the majority of your Islay whiskies, etc. But we take that down in the mash bill. So what you're getting in the glass isn't a 60 ppm distilled whiskey. It's probably about a quarter of that, really. So we actually only use about 23% of our smoked barley in with our non-smoked barley to produce our smoky run. And that's what you're getting in the glass there as well, guys. Okay. And for me, we do a next step up from this, which is svensk rök, amerikansk ek. So Swedish smoke, American oak. So we take our smoky recipe and we age it the same way as we do with Mac. So just in wholly American oak casks. And for me, that's probably one of my favorites, Rich, to be fair, out of everything we do. I love all of our whiskies, I really honestly do. But the Svensk Rök Amerikansk ek, not only is it fun to say, it's also probably one of my favorite cracking jams, that guy. So yeah, Rich, what your impressions on the Svensk Rök, sir?
I mean, for me, I think I've seen Mark say, got a young Islay feel to it. I think I wouldn't, for me, for my personal feel, I wouldn't say that 100% agreement, but I definitely can agree with that in part, at least. But so for me, where I wouldn't equate it, for my sensitivity, I suppose, to smoke to Islay in a big way, or at least the three, the southeastern Islas that have got that big medicinal TCP note to them. It doesn't have that same amount of sort of TCP medicinalness to it. But like a young Kilhoman, of which most Kilhoman that there's bottled is on the relatively young side, at least. That a young Kilhoman, which would obviously be an Islay whiskey. I mean, that Mark was right all along. I could definitely agree with that. There's a herbal sort of smoke to it, which for me, you had like a young, like a Lefroy without the TCP to it, because Lefroy for me has got like a herbalness to it. This has got that smoky herbalness as well, for sure. A friend of mine described it to me when he first had a nose and a bit of palate, but I think he was mostly talking about the nose, was like a campfire in the rain. Like there was smoke to it, but like a dampness to it, like a sort of a wet smoke. Somebody else I've heard it, or not heard of, but I think we had somebody in the comments a while ago, Mick, say something about like a barbecue. I can't remember, it was a longer one, but it was like a barbecue the next day after it had rained overnight. Returning to sort of charcoal barbecue and sort of smelling that the smoke is there, but a bit of damp smoke to it.
Damp type smoke,
Yeah, and I think that for me, like, because I haven't got anything else to sort of hold it up against or compare it to or try and use for reference, I think that, I assume, is the introduction of juniper branches into it.
I'd say so, yeah. I think it's that juniper influence, Rich, yeah.
And then on the nose, that sort of, because juniper branches are going to be quite resinous.
Yes.
Sort of oily, thick resin and things in there. I think that there's a bit of the texture that comes in here that again, my assumption is that's got something to do with the introduction of juniper branches into it. And I've just spotted Mark say as well that Kilhoman is exactly what he was thinking. So yeah, so then I would agree entirely there. And I'll go so far as to say, a compliment as well, as long as Mark enjoys Kilhoman. But to be compared to somebody that's making such excellent whiskey, I think is always a good thing. We try and make, a big point about we're Swedish. We don't want to be another Scottish style whiskey that happens to be made in another country. Swedish identity. I can't impress upon people at home enough how important that is to everyone over in Sweden, or people that are making it. They want this to be a Swedish product. However, using someone like Kilhoman as a reference for it and comparing it to, I think is nothing but a high praise for me. So I can get on board with that. And we've just spotted Stephen has popped some notes in again. Mick, I'll let you take it away.
So Stephen, again, some great notes. Again, delicate smoke, herbaceous, earthy tones, freshly cut peat, on the palate, sweet smoke, some ash, salty dark chocolate, lemon zest, and tobacco. Yeah, spot on. Lovely smoky, salty smoked ham. Fantastic.
That finish, Stephen. Yeah, that's good for me. Smoked meats. I've said smoked meats with this before. I should have said a moment ago, but smoked ham, smoky, salty, smoked ham. What other finish could a carnivore like? I suppose, at least, anyone like me. And Mick, I've just seen Mark again. Sorry, mate, but just to go back to the comment, said Kilhoman was his wedding whiskey. So congratulations, whenever that was. I got married a month ago. Oh, Christ. If you excuse my French, it was a month ago today. I should probably have said something to my wife about that. A month ago today, I got married.
It's not midnight yet. You've still got time. It's not midnight yet.
Still time. Well, I'm on a 10-day quarantine coming back from Sweden, so I can't go out and get anything. But maybe a nice message, or at least I'll empty the dishwasher before she's back. Yes. But yeah, I got married on the Isle of Eriska, this tiny island sort of between Oban and Fort William. And our wedding dram, was a 10-year-old Leipzig, fully matured in Bordeaux red wine cask. So that's what we had in the Quake as we got married there. So wedding whiskey very much on my mind. Thank you very much, Stephen, as well. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry, that was just I've got to make a mental note now, Mick, just to make sure that I do remember to say something afterwards. Yeah.
Yes. Brilliant. Awesome, guys. So I think that just about wraps us up, really. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for tuning in. It's been great. So your comments have been fantastic. Tasting notes, questions, everything like that, guys. Fantastic. So thank you very much for your participation. We're having another one of these on the 29th. But if you fancy a wee in person, then we are at Belfast Whisky Week on the 23rd and the 24th of July. So next week, end of next week. You can buy your packs at belfastwhiskyweek.com. We do 2 sessions, 2 o'clock on the Friday for a small introduction to Mackmyra, and a full in-depth dive into Mackmyra on Saturday the 24th at 12 o'clock, should I say. And yeah, we know one of these. And then on the 19th of August, so anybody that's in and around Kendal, get hold of the guys at the New Union. Get a ticket from them. We'll be doing probably this lineup, and for anybody that's going to be at the live tasting themselves, anybody that's going to be there, we'll have a special 6 dram as well that the people that watching at home won't be. Unfortunately, won't have. So you can get along to Kendal. There's not a lot of tickets left, so be fast. Just touch base with the guys at the New Union. And all that's left for me to say is, Mark, good luck with your job. Was it Mark?
Oh, is that Steve?
Steve,
no.
Sorry, apologies,
Not
Steve. Steve, good luck with your job. Yeah. Good luck with you starting your new job tomorrow, sir. Make sure you go to bed, drink plenty of water. And you'll smash it out of the park, sir. Not a problem. Brilliant. All the best, Steve. All the best. Rich, thank you very much as always, sir. As my regular flying companion, it's been good to have you back from Sweden, mate. And I think that's all that's left from us is good night from him.
Yeah, good night from him. Him? Yeah,
that guy.
Thanks, thanks for joining. Thanks everyone who's got involved. Yeah, had a great time.